Hi friends, my name is Grace Isabel and I'm standing outside my tiny home here in Northwest Montana, and we are going to start in on a quick 10-minute demo of a small scale painting outdoors. We're going to start right in my front yard, so I will take you there now. Okay friends, so I am very lucky here because my front yard is privy to this beautiful little aspen grove. So I figured that I would just take you right to the scene and show you a little bit about how I would set up a painting site, whether it's in your front yard or out in the wilderness. So typically, I don't always carry my easel, but it's a very lightweight easel, so I did set it up outside today, and we're just working on some heavy stock paper here today, so nothing too fancy. As far as paint setup, I'm gonna take you right down here to some of my tools and also talk for a moment about how I set up my palette. We are going to be working with acrylic paint, and the reason being that acrylic is very friendly for in the landscape because of its fast drying nature. Well, there's nothing that can beat oil paint. There is nothing that can beat acrylic for its fast dryability and the ability to quickly cover large expanses of your painting without having to worry to wait for the layers to dry. So what we're working with here, this is how I have found to be the easiest and most effective way of setting out my palette. What we're working with here, first off, I buy replacement glass at Home Depot, and then I tape a piece of heavy stuck white cardboard underneath of it. Very sturdy, can go anywhere. I put one of these in my backpack when I paint. I wrap a towel around it and throw it in my backpack, and it's been easy and effective and very cheap. So the way that I set up my painting palette is pretty simple. I don't go too crazy on the colors. And also I would say that these are very flexible suggestions. So whatever you're used to and prefer to have on your palette is a wonderful addition. So what we have here is we have a titanium white. We have a Hansa yellow light, Hansa yellow dark, a yellow ochre. This is a matte medium. I like the viscosity and the thickness that it can lend to oil paint. We have a sap green, a raw umber, a Prussian blue, a green shade of Prussian blue, an ultramarine blue, a black, a warm purple, and I don't always add red, but today we went for a light alizarin crimson, and then we also have 2 shades of burnt sienna as well. So that is a summary on the palette, and now we will talk a little bit in the class about why we're working with these color relationships and also the way that they're set up, and in particular how this is a most effective way of utilizing color for the landscape. Okay, so what I have here is a wedge that I'm using. I've enjoyed this tool over the years because it enables you to get a quick and effective pass of color on your painting surface. So the first thing that I look for as I am beginning a landscape painting is where my horizon line is, and also thinking about setting up the shapes in your painting the way you would characters in a play. And what I mean by that is that you are finding where your main focal point is, what you are personally most attracted to, what brings you the most joy, and then you are setting up all of the shapes in the surrounding area to focus on that. I believe it was Bernard, don't quote me on this, but I think it was Bernard who said that I don't paint things, I paint the difference between things. And what I love about today's subject matter is the great negative space in between these aspen trees that we have here. So the first thing that I'm starting in on is just a quick pass on where the sky is meeting the grass. So I'll check back with you in just a moment. So my first step is just laying in that first large shape. So we really aren't worrying too much about specifics. We're worrying about color relationships to begin with. And so we'll check back in just a moment. Okay, so as you can see, I'm really not being too precious or particular about how I'm laying in these first large shape relationships and color relationships. So I'm looking at the difference between the ground and the sky right now, and just laying in simple color fields of the background and the foreground. And I also try, as I'm mixing, to keep things within the same color family, just so that those relationships are remaining tight and effective. The great thing about the palette knife is that it can really quickly get your painting moving, and you can really establish wonderful edge control as you're working, that you can always go back in and soften up later in time. But I find it to be a particularly effective tool for quickly gathering information about the landscape without being too particular and getting lost in detail, because the palette knife just doesn't allow for that. So now I'm going back in with a paler and colder blue, and what I'm doing is I'm actually carving back into the spaces between. So I've established these three shapes as the following three aspen trees that you see there, but instead of thinking about painting those trees, I am now using the negative space in between them to sculpt the trees themselves. All right, so we've come in and just started paying closer attention and observing both the edges, the edge quality, and the way the light is hitting on the landscape right now. So as you can see, I've just started working in on the trees and also deciding where I want our viewer to pay attention. So I was really thinking about where I want the main drama of the painting to be and how I can direct our eye to that point, both through shape structure and pattern, mark making, and also the thickness of the paint, and where I'm allowing the edges to become a blurred space, such as in here, and where I want that sharp quality of an edge, say in here. So I'm thinking a lot about sound as I paint as well, and you can really dictate where that snap can occur in your painting and where you want softness and fluidity and a little bit of space to breathe. So the light is very quickly changing as I'm working, but I just wanted to show you how I'm using the edge of the corner of my palette knife here to actually draw back into, I'm drawing some of these grasses around the aspen grove. So I'm just using this very edge here, and after laying in a cooler green on top of this warm green background that I had, I'm just using the edge to reductively draw back in. So that's another wonderful element of the palette knife, is its multiple uses. Okay, so as you can see, our palette's gotten quite a bit messier since we last left it. And something we'll talk about quite a bit in this class is imposing light scenarios that aren't necessarily there. So sometimes as the light shifts in the landscape, we have to be very adept at adapting. So when we choose how we want the light play to play out in our painting, we can make decisions and continue based on those initial decisions rather than being at the whim of the changing light, which really alleviates a lot of the stress and pressure of landscape painting. So as you can see here, we've just kind of started cleaning up some of these edges and really bringing in some of the drama of the scene and the contrast into our painting. You'll notice that I'm not too precious in particular about the being exact to what I'm seeing, but I am particular about being specific to what I enjoy about the scene. So what I was really enjoying was the very thick edged whites of this particular right aspen tree. So really carving in with my palette knife, I really sculpt it and mold it that tree accordingly to what I found joy in. So as for today, we're gonna let this painting dry for a little while and call it a day, but I look forward to many more paintings with you. Thank you.